Before we dive into this eerie adventure, we want to remind you that the story you are about to watch is a work of fiction. Every character, city, and location you'll encounter in this video springs from the realm of imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real-world locations is purely coincidental. So, grab your popcorn, dim the lights, and prepare for a journey into the supernatural. Happy watching, and remember, it's only a story.
In the quiet hours of dawn, when the mist clung like a ghostly shroud to the rugged coastline of British Columbia, there was a sense of the world holding its breath. The locals often spoke of the sea with a mix of reverence and fear, for it had given much and taken more. It was here, amidst the whispers of the ancient forests and the ceaseless murmur of the waves, that our story begins. The small, isolated town of Seabrook, nestled on the edge of the wild Pacific, was a place that seemed almost forgotten by time. Its inhabitants were a hardy bunch, shaped by the harsh elements and the solitude that came with living at the edge of the world. Yet, beneath their stoic exteriors, there ran an undercurrent of unease, a collective memory of unexplained occurrences and tragedies long past. Into this eerie backdrop arrived our protagonist, a troubled investigator named James McAllister. James was no stranger to the darker aspects of humanity, having spent years unraveling the twisted threads of unspeakable crimes. But the case that drew him to Seabrook was personal, a haunting mystery that had eluded him for far too long. The townsfolk were wary of outsiders, more so of one who asked uncomfortable questions. But James was undeterred. He knew that the key to unraveling the enigma lay hidden in the shadows of the town and the unpredictable nature of the sea that bordered it. As he walked along the desolate beach, the sound of the waves a constant companion, he felt the weight of the town's secrets bearing down upon him. Little did he know that his arrival had set in motion a series of events that would lead to a gruesome discovery, one that would shake the very foundations of Seabrook and challenge his every belief. The prologue sets the stage for a tale shrouded in mystery and suspense, a narrative that delves deep into the human psyche and the secrets that lie hidden in the most unexpected of places. The town of Seabrook, usually so quiet that one could hear the gulls squabbling over scraps at the docks, was abuzz with an undercurrent of tension that morning. James McAllister, his senses attuned to the subtle shifts in atmosphere, felt it as soon as he stepped into the local diner for a morning coffee. The hushed conversations, the furtive glances, something was amiss. After a few probing questions to the reticent waitress, he learned of a disturbing discovery on the beach early that morning. As he made his way towards the shoreline, the salty air did little to clear the growing unease in his mind. The scene on the beach was surreal. Police tape fluttered in the wind, cordoning off an area where the waves gently lapped at a more macabre sight. Scattered across the wet sand were several human feet, each clad in a different shoe, as if mocking any attempt at normalcy. The grim array seemed almost artistic in its grotesqueness. The local authorities, a small contingent of officers led by Sheriff Collins, were clearly out of their depth. Their faces, usually weathered by the elements and the routine hardships of coastal life, were now etched with a horror that spoke of an ordeal beyond their ken. James watched from a distance, his mind racing. The feet were severed cleanly, almost surgically, and there were no signs of the bodies they once belonged to. It was as if the sea itself had coughed up these remnants of lost souls. As he took notes, James could feel the eyes of the townspeople on him, their suspicion as palpable as the sea mist. Rumors and theories abounded from the plausible to the absurd, but one thing was clear. Seabrook, with its history of unexplained disappearances, had a new mystery on its hands. This was no ordinary case. The nature of the discovery suggested something far more sinister than a simple accident or foul play. It was as if someone, or something, was sending a message. But what? And to whom? As the day wore on and the tide retreated, leaving behind its grim offerings, James knew that the answers he sought were rooted deep in the town's past, and perhaps, in its very soul. The investigation had just begun, and already, the shadows seemed to be closing in. James McAllister's first step was to establish a connection with the local authorities, despite the palpable air of distrust. Sheriff Collins, a man of few words, seemed relieved yet cautious to have an experienced investigator on board. The small police department of Seabrook was ill-equipped for a case of this magnitude and macabre nature. Determined to peel back the layers of this mystery, James started by gathering every scrap of information available. He pored over police reports of the severed feet, noting the varying sizes and types of shoes: a child's bright sneaker, a woman's weathered hiking boot, a man's polished leather shoe. Each one, a silent testament to a life unaccounted for. Interviews with the locals proved to be a challenge. Seabrook's residents were a close-knit community, bound by the shared hardships of coastal life and a deep-seated reluctance to involve outsiders. However, James' persistent yet respectful approach gradually wore down their reticence. He learned of the numerous missing persons cases that had plagued the town over the years, many of which had remained unresolved, their stories fading into the background noise of daily survival. The more he learned, the more James felt the undercurrent of something sinister. The missing persons cases were too frequent for a town of this size, and the circumstances too varied to form a coherent pattern. Yet, they all seemed to converge at one point: the sea. As night fell, James sat in his sparsely furnished motel room, maps and notes spread out before him. He traced the coastline, marked the spots where the feet were found, and noted the dates of the disappearances. There was a rhythm to it, almost like the ebb and flow of the tide, but it eluded his grasp, slipping away like sand through fingers. The investigation was now in full swing, but with each passing day, the complexity of the case seemed to grow. There were no easy answers here, only layers upon layers of questions. And somewhere, in the heart of this quiet coastal town, lay a truth so horrifying it threatened to shatter the fragile peace of Seabrook. James knew he was racing against time. The sea, a constant rhythmic presence in the town, was both a grave and a keeper of secrets. And as he delved deeper into the investigation, he couldn't shake off the feeling that the sea was watching, waiting, as if it too had a role to play in the unraveling of this dark mystery. The gray dawn broke over Seabrook as James McAllister set out to delve deeper into the town's history. The local library, a quaint ivy-clad building, held the dusty archives of Seabrook's past. Here, amidst the creaking shelves and the musty scent of old books, James hoped to find clues that the modern world had overlooked. He spent hours poring over yellowed newspapers and faded photographs, tracing the town's history back to its founding. Stories of shipwrecks, smugglers, and early settlers filled the pages, painting a picture of a community that had always lived at the mercy of the sea. But it was the more recent history that caught his attention: a pattern of disappearances dating back decades, each incident a puzzle piece in a larger, more ominous picture. Amidst the archives, James discovered old myths and legends of the sea, tales of spirits and curses that the sea supposedly held. While he remained skeptical of such superstitions, he couldn't ignore the eerie similarities between these ancient tales and the current mystery. His investigation took a turn when he stumbled upon an old journal belonging to a lighthouse keeper from the early 1900s. The keeper spoke of strange happenings along the coast, of shadows in the water, and unexplained lights on stormy nights. It was folklore, yet the fear in the keeper's words was palpable, a fear that seemed to echo across time to the present day. Armed with new information, James began to connect the dots. The locations of the disappearances formed a chilling pattern along the coastline, each incident occurring within a disturbing proximity to old maritime tragedies. It was as if the past tragedies of the sea were somehow linked to the present. As the day turned to evening, James sat in the dim light of the library, a map of the coastline spread out before him. The dots he had marked formed an almost deliberate trail, leading to a secluded area known for its treacherous tides and rugged cliffs. It was a place locals avoided, a place shrouded in ominous folklore. The realization hit James like a cold wave. The key to solving this mystery lay not just in the present, but in the dark, forgotten chapters of Seabrook's history. The town, with its picturesque facade, harbored deep scars inflicted by the sea, scars that told a story of loss, sorrow, and something far more sinister. As he left the library, the weight of history upon him, James knew his next step was to venture to that forsaken stretch of coastline. There, in the shadows of the cliffs and the roar of the waves, he would confront the ghosts of the past and perhaps find the horrifying truth hidden within Seabrook's depths. James' journey to the secluded coastal area was marked by a sense of foreboding. The cliffs loomed overhead, casting long shadows over the rocky shore. The sea, a tumultuous expanse of gray, crashed against the rocks with relentless fury. It was a place that seemed untouched by time, a stark reminder of nature's indifference to human affairs. As he scoured the area, James discovered more gruesome tokens of the mystery: a tattered scarf tangled in the seaweed, a weathered photograph partially buried in the sand, each item seemingly discarded by the sea. The items were chillingly personal, a stark contrast to the impersonal brutality of the severed feet. The findings added a new layer of urgency to the investigation. The macabre nature of these discoveries painted a picture of a predator, one who was not just content with taking lives, but seemed to revel in leaving behind pieces of a morbid puzzle. Back in Seabrook, the atmosphere had grown tense. News of the additional findings had spread, and the townspeople were now openly fearful. James found himself the subject of wary glances and whispered conversations. It was clear that his presence and his discoveries were disrupting the fragile calm of the town. Amidst this growing unease, James began to experience unnerving incidents. He felt eyes on him when he walked down the street, received cryptic anonymous notes slipped under his motel room door, and heard whispers just out of earshot. It was as if the town itself was pushing back against his investigation. These incidents, while unsettling, only served to strengthen James' resolve. He started to piece together a theory that the severed feet, the personal items, and the historical pattern of disappearances were all part of a ritualistic act, one rooted in the town's dark past. Each night, as he sat alone in his motel room, poring over his notes and maps, James felt the isolation of Seabrook closing in. The town, with its scenic beauty and quaint charm, now seemed like a facade hiding a much darker truth. The investigation had taken a toll on James. The line between reality and paranoia began to blur. Sleepless nights and the relentless sound of the sea seemed to echo the chaos of his thoughts. But amidst this turmoil, one thing was clear: the key to solving the mystery lay in understanding the town's relationship with the sea, a force that gave life and, as he had come to realize, dealt death in equal measure. As the suspense built, James prepared to delve deeper into the heart of Seabrook's darkness. The truth was close, he could feel it, lurking beneath the surface like a predator waiting in the depths. And he knew, with a sense of inexorable dread, that the tide of this mystery was far from receding. The deeper James McAllister delved into Seabrook's past, the more the present seemed to mirror its dark history. The patterns of disappearances, the eerie findings, and the townspeople's reticence all pointed towards a horrifying truth that was deeply entwined with the town's identity. Determined to uncover the reality behind the severed feet mystery, James began a meticulous examination of the lives of the missing persons. Each case was a jigsaw puzzle in itself, with pieces scattered across time and memory. He interviewed friends and family members, uncovering stories of love, loss, and sometimes dark secrets. These personal histories revealed a startling pattern. Many of the missing individuals had some connection to the sea: fishermen, sailors, even a marine biologist. It was as if the sea was claiming those who dared to venture into its domain. James' investigation led him to a shadowy chapter in Seabrook's history, a series of tragic incidents at sea, where ships were lost under mysterious circumstances. The records were sparse, but they hinted at something more than mere accidents. There were whispers of a cursed coastline and a town that turned a blind eye to the misfortunes of those who braved the sea. As he pieced together these fragments of history, James discovered references to an old seafaring legend, a tale of a spectral entity that roamed the coast, exacting a grim toll on those who trespassed into its waters. While skeptical of such folklore, he couldn't dismiss the chilling parallels to the current events. The breakthrough came when James traced the lineage of several missing persons back to the families of those lost in the maritime tragedies. It was as if a generational curse was at play, linking the past to the present in a macabre dance of fate. Compelled by this revelation, James ventured to the outskirts of Seabrook, to a secluded area known for its treacherous tides. Here, among the jagged rocks and crashing waves, he found evidence of clandestine gatherings, remnants of candles, strange symbols etched into the rocks, and unsettling carvings of maritime motifs. The realization dawned on James that the truth behind the severed feet was far more complex than he had imagined. It was not just a case of a serial predator, but a tangled web of history, superstition, and a collective guilt that the town harbored. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, James understood that the key to solving the mystery lay in confronting the town's unspoken pact with the sea, a pact sealed by loss and perpetuated by silence. But such revelations came with a price, and James knew that exposing the truth would shatter the fragile veneer of normalcy that Seabrook clung to. With this harrowing insight, James prepared to confront the town with its dark legacy. The tide of lost souls, it seemed, was a testament to a horror that ran deeper than the sea's depths, a horror that Seabrook had to face if it ever hoped to break free from its haunting past. James McAllister's resolve hardened as he prepared to confront the heart of Seabrook's darkness. The pieces of the puzzle had aligned, painting a picture of a town haunted by its history, entangled in a web of secrets and silent pacts made with the sea. His first confrontation was with the town's unofficial matriarch, Mrs. Eleanor Gray, a descendant of one of Seabrook's founding families. Her ancestral home, a grand weather-beaten mansion overlooking the sea, held the air of secrets long buried. Mrs. Gray, a formidable woman in her 80s, received James with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. In the dimly lit drawing room, amidst nautical relics and faded family portraits, James laid out his findings. He spoke of the pattern of disappearances, the connection to the families of those lost at sea, and the chilling evidence of rituals performed on the treacherous coastline. Mrs. Gray listened, her face a mask of stoicism. But as James delved deeper into the town's unspoken history, her facade began to crack. With a mixture of resignation and defiance, she revealed a shocking truth: a century-old conspiracy born from a tragic shipwreck, a curse believed to be cast upon the town, and a pact made by the townsfolk with what they perceived as a malevolent sea spirit. This pact, she explained, was their way of appeasing the sea, a misguided attempt to prevent further tragedies. Over time, it evolved into a dark tradition, kept alive by a select few, a tradition that demanded a tribute to the sea in exchange for the town's safety. James listened, aghast at the revelation. The severed feet, the personal items, they were part of a ritual, a symbolic offering to the sea. The truth was as horrifying as it was unbelievable, a tale of collective madness and desperation, spanning generations. Armed with this knowledge, James knew he had to act. But the challenge was daunting. Exposing the truth meant tearing apart the fabric of a community, challenging deeply held beliefs and fears. As he left Mrs. Gray's mansion, the weight of responsibility bore down on him. The town, with its picturesque facades and tranquil streets, now seemed like a stage set for a tragedy that had played out over generations. The days that followed were a blur of activity. James worked closely with Sheriff Collins, piecing together evidence and preparing to bring the truth to light. But as they neared the end of their investigation, an unsettling realization dawned: not all the pieces fit. There were elements of the mystery that remained unexplained, loose ends that defied logic. The final confrontation came on a stormy night, the sea roaring its fury as James and Sheriff Collins faced the remaining members of the pact. In a tense, charged standoff, truths were laid bare, and the town's dark heart was exposed. But even as the sun rose on a seemingly resolved case, James couldn't shake off the feeling that something was still amiss. There were questions left unanswered, shadows that lurked just beyond the reach of reason. As he prepared to leave Seabrook, its mysteries seemingly laid to rest, James knew that some aspects of this eerie phenomenon would remain unsolved, secrets carried away by the tides. The severed feet mystery had revealed its horrifying truth, but it had also underscored the enigmatic, often inexplicable nature of human belief and fear. The story of Seabrook was a testament to the unseen forces that shape our lives, forces as relentless and unpredictable as the sea itself. And for James McAllister, the memory of those whispering tides would linger, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lie in the depths of the human heart and the vast, unfathomable ocean. As James McAllister prepared to leave Seabrook, the town seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. The exposure of the dark pact and the unsettling traditions had shaken the community to its core. Yet, even with the revelations and the subsequent disbanding of the secretive group, a palpable sense of unease lingered in the air. James' time in Seabrook had yielded answers, yet it also unearthed deeper mysteries that defied explanation. The connection between the ritualistic offerings and the severed feet found on the beach was clear, but the underlying reasons for these occurrences remained shrouded in ambiguity. There were no definitive answers as to why the sea returned these macabre tokens, nor could science fully explain the peculiar circumstances surrounding each discovery. In his final meeting with Sheriff Collins, James discussed the lingering mysteries. Collins, a man deeply affected by the case and its impact on his town, admitted his own frustration. Despite their best efforts, certain elements of the phenomenon resisted closure. There were no culprits to apprehend, no rational explanations to offer, only the haunting legacy of the town's troubled relationship with the sea. As James drove away from Seabrook, the town's picturesque scenery was tinged with a somber hue. He pondered the human capacity for belief and the lengths to which fear and tradition could drive a community. The case had been solved, at least in the most tangible sense, but the questions that remained were a reminder of the mysteries that lay beyond human understanding. The story of Seabrook, with its eerie phenomenon, would likely continue to puzzle and fascinate. James knew that the town would eventually move on, the scars of the past slowly healing with time. But for those who had lived through the events, the mystery would never be fully resolved. In the final scene, as the coastline disappeared from his rearview mirror, James reflected on the enigmatic nature of his profession. Each case, with its own set of puzzles and enigmas, was a journey into the unknown. And in Seabrook, he had encountered one of the most perplexing mysteries of his career: the severed feet mystery. Tide of the Lost would remain, in part, an unsolved enigma, a testament to the eerie, inexplicable phenomena that occasionally emerge from the depths of the human psyche and the natural world. It was a story that would linger in the collective memory, a chilling reminder of the mysteries that can lurk in the most unexpected of places and the tides that silently shape our lives. Months later, a new report emerged from Seabrook. Another foot had washed ashore, its appearance as sudden and inexplicable as those before. The cycle, it seemed, was not yet broken. The mystery continued to haunt the town, a ghostly echo of the past that whispered of truths better left undiscovered. For Seabrook and for James McAllister, the whispering tides of the Pacific would always hold a hint of mystery, a reminder that some secrets of the sea are beyond human comprehension, lost in the depths of the unfathomable ocean. The story of the severed feet mystery. Tide of the Lost concludes with the epilogue. There are no further chapters in this narrative. The tale ends on an enigmatic note, leaving a lasting impression of the mysterious and often inexplicable nature of such phenomena. The story, woven through the investigative journey of James McAllister, not only uncovers the dark secrets of a small coastal town, but also explores deeper themes of human belief, fear, and the unknown. It leaves the reader with a sense of the unresolved, a deliberate choice that mirrors the often inconclusive nature of real-life mysteries.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the video. We highly recommend you watch the next video here. Oops. I'm waiting for you to click. Yes, you've clicked. Happy watching.